It began, as most modern scandals do, with a single anonymous post. The post came from a mysterious account claiming to belong to someone from her past, a woman who said she had known Meghan before the fame, before the palaces, and long before the world ever bowed at her feet. At first, people dismissed it as just another desperate attempt for clout, another ghost trying to ride the coattails of royalty. But then, the evidence started dropping. Old photos from school, scribbled notes from yearbooks, and grainy videos of class plays where a younger, sharper version of Meghan commanded the stage with an unnerving confidence. And then came the voice notes. A short audio clip, uploaded without context, that sent a chill through the internet. You think she's kind? Try crossing her, a woman's voice said. The tone was confident, bitter, and eerily familiar. It was the voice of someone who had been burned before and had kept the receipts. The story of how this one voice note ignited a global firestorm, threatening to bring down a carefully constructed empire, is one you won't want to miss. Before we dive into the chaos, the panic in the palace, and Meghan's masterful counterattack, it would mean the world to us here at the Ruby Report if you would hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because the Game of Thrones being played in Hollywood is more cutthroat than you can possibly imagine. In less than an hour, that single audio clip had millions of views. Comment sections exploded. Was this the real Meghan, the woman behind the flawless image and soft, curated speeches? Or was this just another jealous ghost from her past trying to rewrite history for a fleeting moment of fame? Inside her Los Angeles mansion, Meghan's team reportedly went into full-blown crisis mode. The atmosphere was described as radioactive. Phones buzzed with frantic energy, statements were drafted and then deleted, and publicists were calling each other, desperately trying to figure out how bad the damage really was. She's built her entire brand on empowerment and control, one Hollywood insider whispered to a reporter. But this makes her look manipulative, cold, everything she's fought so hard against. The palace, in its usual fashion, refused to comment, but their regal silence only fueled the raging fire. The tabloids feasted. It was Christmas morning for the gossip columnists. Paparazzi swarmed outside her Montecito gates, waiting for a single glimpse of Meghan, who suddenly seemed more mortal and more vulnerable than ever before. Every former co-star, every assistant, every stylist, anyone who had ever brushed shoulders with her was being contacted for dirt. The story had already slipped from her hands and was now a runaway train. The woman behind the account, who identified herself only as C, wasn't backing down. She started posting more. There were screenshots of old emails, scanned diary pages, even behind-the-scenes photos from acting auditions that painted a picture of a young woman utterly obsessed with success. Some posts seemed harmless, like teenage notes and innocent gossip. But others were darker, hinting at bitter rivalries, calculated betrayals, and a ruthless determination to be seen at any cost. Everything was about image, one caption read, posted beneath a photo of a smiling, teenage Meghan. She didn't care who she hurt as long as she won. For Hollywood, this wasn't just gossip. It was an earthquake. Studios began calling emergency meetings. Executives whispered about optics and risk assessment. She wasn't just an actress anymore. She was a global brand, an investment worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And a brand built on inspiration doesn't survive long when the world starts calling you a fake. Talk shows replayed her old interviews, picking apart her every word with forensic precision. Was she always this calculated? Was the effortless charm just a mask she'd been wearing for decades? Meanwhile, fans fought brutal wars in the comment sections. Some claimed she was being targeted simply because she was a powerful woman who dared to rise too high. Others argued that the mask was finally, inevitably slipping. The internet was a battlefield, and Meghan Markle was the territory everyone was fighting over. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for, her response. After 3 long, tense days of silence, Meghan appeared online. There was no glam squad, no professional lighting, no filters. It was just her, a plain backdrop, and a quiet voice that trembled at first, but grew stronger as she spoke. "I'm human," she said, her eyes glistening. I've made mistakes. I've grown. But I refuse to be defined by stories from decades ago, stories told by people who no longer know me. Her tone was soft but firm. To some, it was a masterclass in vulnerability and grace. To others, it was pure, unadulterated performance. Analysts tore it apart within minutes. That wasn't an apology, one PR expert said on a news segment. That was narrative control. Every word was rehearsed. Yet, it worked, at least partially. The video hit 50 million views in a single day. Hashtags like hashtag We Stand With Meghan and hashtag The Real Meghan trended worldwide. But right beside them, harsher ones gained traction. Hashtag Meghan Deception, hashtag Calculated Queen. Behind the cameras, things were even more chaotic. Palace insiders whispered that senior aides had begged her to stay silent, to let the scandal blow over like a passing storm. But Meghan had other plans. She's not built for silence, one aide admitted. She wants to lead the story, not hide from it. That's her power and her downfall. But just when it seemed like the storm might pass, she returned with something new, something that felt like a kill shot. What she claimed were emails from Hollywood insiders discussing how Meghan had carefully plotted her own transformation years before she ever met the prince. The screenshots, whether genuine or not, felt convincing enough to spark another wildfire online. Conspiracy threads on Reddit erupted overnight. Fans analyzed timestamps, watermarks, even the font of the emails, while gossip channels on YouTube uploaded videos every hour dissecting the latest detail. One viral TikTok accused her of building her entire personality on a lie. Another called her Hollywood's biggest illusion. The question dividing the world was simple. Was she the victim of a vicious smear campaign or the architect of her own downfall? Her supporters saw a powerful woman being dragged for refusing to play by the rules. Her critics saw a master manipulator finally caught in her own web. Either way, the world couldn't stop watching. Hollywood directors went quiet. Sponsors hesitated. The entire industry held its breath, because in a world obsessed with image, one leak can do more than ruin a reputation. It can change the game entirely. And as Meghan's carefully built empire began to tremble, her former classmate promised there was still more to come. This, she wrote in her final post that night, is only the beginning. By the next morning, the story had gone nuclear. Every corner of the internet had something to say about Meghan and her supposed hidden past. But while the noise outside grew deafening, something colder and more deliberate was unfolding behind the closed doors of her Montecito mansion. Her team was holed up, running on caffeine, panic, and strategy. The first crisis meeting lasted 7 hours. Reports suggested tempers flared, voices rose, and one publicist even quit mid-call, muttering something about unfixable optics. Meghan, however, sat silently for most of it, scrolling through her phone, reading the comments herself. Thousands of them. Some cruel, some mocking, but a precious few, were still defending her. Those few mattered the most. They were her anchor in the storm. Let them talk, she finally said, her tone sharp enough to cut glass. But if they want a story, I'll give them one. That was the moment the shift began. Because while the world was busy writing her downfall, Meghan was already plotting her comeback. Her secret weapon wasn't denial, it was reinvention. She understood something most people didn't. The internet doesn't crave truth, it craves transformation. Her plan started with silence. For 2 full days, she disappeared. No posts, no statements, no leaks from her team. The online chatter hit a fever pitch. But in reality, she was deep in strategy sessions, not with PR consultants, but with storytellers, screenwriters, and a select group of digital strategists who knew how to reshape narratives at scale. She doesn't want to defend herself, one source revealed. She wants to redefine herself. Meghan's new approach was risky but genius. She'd create a controlled piece of content, a personal documentary filmed at home, stripped down, emotional, and raw. But she knew timing was everything. She watched, she monitored the hashtags, she studied the algorithm, and she waited until the first wave of outrage began to plateau. Then she struck. At precisely 8 p.m. on a Friday night, Her team quietly uploaded a single clip to her official account. It opened with silence, then her voice, calm and deliberate. "There's so much noise," she said, "but not every echo is the truth." No music, no logo, just her face in natural light. It ended with the words, Part 1, Becoming. Within minutes, it went viral. The internet froze. Everyone, supporters and critics alike, hit play. Some called it brave, others called it manipulative, but everyone agreed on one thing. She was back, and she knew exactly what she was doing. By morning, the hashtags had flipped. Hashtag Meghan Speaks started trending globally. The same people who mocked her 2 days earlier were now dissecting her tone and body language. "It's calculated," said one media critic, "but it's masterful." Meanwhile, in Hollywood boardrooms, opinions shifted again. Meghan had gone from scandal to spectacle. And in this business, relevance, even controversial relevance, is power. One streaming executive reportedly said, "We can't afford to drop her now. The whole world's watching." But C posted another message, this time short and cold. "A performance is still a performance." Critics accused Meghan of weaponizing victimhood. Supporters argued she was reclaiming her voice. The debate became cultural, ideological, and deeply personal. Exactly 1 week after her teaser, Meghan released the full short film, titled Becoming. It dropped without fanfare, a quiet upload at midnight. The film wasn't what anyone expected. No apologies, no explanations, just raw, poetic narration layered over childhood photos and moments of solitude. "People think they know you," she said softly, "but the version they believe in is usually the one they need, not the one that's real." The public didn't know if they believed her, but they couldn't look away. But just as the calm was setting in, an anonymous account appeared on X with a single post. "If she wants the truth, she'll get it. 10 p.m. tomorrow." Attached was a blurry yearbook photo of Meghan, her face circled in red. At exactly 10 the next night, a video dropped. It was short, grainy, and devastating. Footage from an old home camera showed Meghan and C together as teenagers. "When I'm famous," Meghan's younger voice said, "I'll make sure everyone remembers me the way I want to be remembered." The clip was only 8 seconds long, but 8 seconds was all it took. The internet exploded. "She planned this from the start," one comment read. The film that had felt like her rebirth now looked like a carefully timed cover-up. Hollywood wavered again. Brands paused campaigns. Sponsors asked for emergency meetings. The woman who had controlled the world's narrative was finally losing control of her own. That night, she called her lawyers. The next morning, her legal team issued a brutal statement, condemning the clip as illegally obtained and threatening legal action. It was a declaration of war. But hours later, C resurfaced with one final post. A handwritten letter dated years ago that appeared to be from Meghan herself. The closing sentence read, "I don't want to be real. I want to be remembered." After the letter, Meghan went completely silent for 3 weeks. The world was obsessed. Then, just as the frenzy began to fade, she reappeared with a live stream announcement. Meghan. One night only. Over 200 million people tuned in. The screen faded from black, revealing Meghan, sitting alone in a softly lit room. "I disappeared," she began, "because I needed to remember who I was before all of this." Her voice was steady, her words razor sharp. "People have called me fake, manipulative, even dangerous. But the truth is, I've always been performing, because that's what this world demands. I didn't create the game, I just learned how to win it." It wasn't an apology, it was a confession, but one that flipped the entire narrative. She wasn't denying her ambition, she was owning it. She reframed every calculated move not as deceit, but as survival. Then she leaned forward. "And for those who still want to tear me down, I'll give you something new to talk about." She announced her next move, a new, independent media platform dedicated to unfiltered storytelling. A place for real stories from people who've been silenced, mocked, or misrepresented. The audience erupted. It was a brilliant pivot. She had reframed herself not as a fallen celebrity, but as a pioneer. The same executives who had backed away were now calling her team non-stop, but she declined every offer. "It has to be mine," she said, "completely mine." Her former friend, C, tried one last time, releasing an old interview where she bitterly said, "She'll never change." But the clip backfired. Commenters called her jealous and outdated. The world had grown tired of attacks. They wanted redemption. And Meghan, whether sincere or not, was offering it on a global stage. She had understood something no one else dared to admit. In the modern world, authenticity isn't about being flawless. It's about controlling how your flaws are seen. And she had mastered that art better than anyone alive.